We're going to go ahead and get started, and if I can get everybody to stand, Councilman Darius is going to lead us in an invocation.
Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessings that you've given us. We take so many of these for granted, and we just pray that we can continue to live in a country that's with freedoms and different things that we enjoy. Father, help us as we go through this meeting. Help us to keep you in our minds and be with us the rest of the week. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Let the record show we have a quorum, and we'll call the meeting to order. And if you would all join me, we'll have a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. It is at this time in our meeting that we're always glad to welcome visitors and receive public comment. And we're glad that everybody's here tonight. Mr. Davis, we're glad to see you. Glad you're here. Mr. Nail, it's good to have you representing Parkville, Smith and Cooper. Slater, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
And Gil, it's always an honor for you to be here with us. And glad the staff is here. Ramon, glad you're here. And ladies, we're glad y'all are here. So if there's anyone that'd like to make public comment, we'll open the floor for that at this time. If not, we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. First thing we'd like to do is to approve the minutes of the council meeting of November the 13th of this year. I trust you all read those, and I'll make a motion that we approve those.
A second.
And we have a second. Is there any discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Next thing we'd like to do is to consider ordinance number 0503-1217, amending Chapter 3 of the Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinances. Leanne, I'm going to let you go over that.
Okay. Chapter 3 is building regulations. In that, we address mobile homes and mobile home parks. Mobile homes are prohibited in the city of Muleshoe. Mobile homes were actually constructed before January 15th of 1976. After that time, those become manufactured homes. And so we need to clean that up. It's basically a housekeeping ordinance where we address manufactured homes and manufactured home parks. And so that takes care of that. There's also a section that's been added to that, Article 3.4, Section 3.404, not allowed in the city limits. We've added a deal that says, a section that says that RVs will not be allowed as permanent or temporary residences unless placed in an approved and permitted RV park or manufactured home park. I know some of you have noticed we seem to have more of those that are popping up. I don't know if it's the tiny house movement or exactly what it is, but we do know that we do have some of those in the city limits of Muleshoe. Those are recreational vehicles. They're not intended to be temporary or permanent housing residences. And so this ordinance would actually clean that up. Since we don't have any zoning in Muleshoe, we've never had the ability to completely address that. There are some things we have been able to address. You know, if they have water just running out on the ground, not being contained, some of those kind of things we've been able to address, but not actually the placement of those RVs as residences. And so this part of this ordinance would take care of that for us.
If an RV remains in one spot for a certain period of time, does that mean it's a permanent residence?
I think my understanding is right now, no, it is not, because it's still an RV. What would happen is if those are moved, let's say someone lives in theirs and then they decide to go on vacation and they move it. When they come back, they can't put it back where it was. Then it's because that's an RV.
But is there any way to use this ordinance to address like recreational vehicles that are parked on the street for a long duration?
My understanding,
Essentially talking about storage of them. Okay.
not if they're being lived in. Now, there's some storage, but Ramon's our building official. Would you
This
address that?
addresses residents. It doesn't address one being parked on the street. This basically what it does is addresses that you cannot make a permanent residence or temporary residence of an RV.
But if you have an RV in front of your house for 3 or 4 months, that should count as part of your permanent residence, which you should not be able to do.
Under the building code, we can't address that. We're addressing permanent
Not
fixture.
if it's not hooked up to water, electricity, and being lived in.
Well, I guess your definition of lived in, how would you find that, Slater?
Well, and I've looked at this for other towns, and I won't tell you it makes perfect sense to me, but it becomes a big deal. You know, you get a lot of pushback as people have RVs and they're storing them, and nobody likes an RV stored in front of their house or next door. I mean, I've been in towns where I talk about, you know, that we got RVs parked on both sides of our house, and we feel like we're just, you know, surprisingly very little support for those, but I think, if I remember correctly, those are dealt with more in a parking, street, right-of-way type ordinance as opposed to a building ordinance, or something similar to zoning. But it's something we can certainly look at, but I would not have expected this to address that issue, but it's an issue that's out there that's been looked at before.
I could just see how this ordinance might could help with that. You know, because if I'm leaving something out in front of my house that is some type of living scenario, you know, for an extended period of time, yeah, that could be considered my permanent residence.
Well, I think there may be some people who say that that is their permanent residence, but if it's not, that's part of what we're trying to address with
I
this.
mean, even if you go into it once a month to clean it, I would say that's part of your residence.
That's not our interpretation.
And I think, and I can't tell you what state law says about definitions of residence and whatnot, but there'd probably be some guidance there, and probably need to be careful and look through all of ours and see how we define residence, just so we don't have some unintended consequences. But if the council decides they want us to look at, you know, a storage/parking, we'll look at that and get back to you. Y'all just let us know.
Is there any other question?
Make a motion we pass the ordinance.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to pass that ordinance. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Now we'd like to consider resolution number R734-1217, which is the grant administration for the 2018 CDBG program. And this comes through K. Howard and Halco Services.
If council remembers, we came back to you after the scoring happened on the, you know, it's a 2-year cycle, 2017-18. We actually scored number 7 out of 14, and 5, the top 5 were funded. In visiting with Kay last week, she believes that there's going to be some more funds, probably the fall of 2018, and because we were second then in the next batch, she believes that we will be funded with those funds. So this actually just prepares us for that. It's we've already gone through procurement and all of that, the scoring and some of those. Mayor Pro Tem Ellis assisted Ramon and I with that scoring whenever we did that. So Parkhill, Smith and Cooper scored the highest for engineering services, and A&J Halco Services for grant administration. So that's what these resolutions do, allows the mayor to enter into contract. The first one with Halco, and then secondly with Parkhill, Smith and Cooper.
All right.
I'll make a motion we pass that resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass that ordinance. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Next thing, we need to do is consider resolution number R735-1217, which are the engineering services for that grant program. And I'll let you explain.
Okay, well, it's the same thing as the grant administration, but this just allows the mayor to go into contract with Parkville, Smith and Cooper. And actually, Leonard Nail is here if council had any questions for Leonard about that process, whatever. This was a water project that, some water line improvements that the city applied for.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about the engineering services or the grant program? Mr. Nail, any comments you'd like to make?
This has been a long program to get funded on this, and I was visiting with Ramon. It's probably been at least 7 or 8 years since we first looked at this.
Right.
So ready to get it rolling. And replacing with small lines is what we're doing. So.
One of the problems with that grant program is that sometimes it did not score well enough to be in the top of the list because that wasn't their priority. So it's good that
Of course, one of the things that did help with our scoring was last year whenever council approved to do some work on our rate structure.
Right.
And so that's part of what helped us with this particular grant.
I'll make a motion where we approve that resolution.
Second.
And we have a second. Is there any other discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Next thing we'd like to do is to consider requests for hotel motel tax funds from the Muleshoe Country Club. And this is in consideration of their concert that they had,
Yes, sir.
and which was really nice. And they're requesting 30 grand,
Yes, sir.
right?
It was a well-attended event and something that we expect to grow in the coming year. The date has been set in stone? No, okay. So we're working out a date with bands and all of that kind of thing. But Matt Davis is here to make presentation, I think, answer questions from the council.
Yeah, as she said, I'm Matt Davis. I'm here representing the Muleshoe Country Club and the concert committee there that we have put together. Requesting another, equal as last year, $30,000 from the hotel motel tax funds. A little breakdown of last year, aside from the city's part, the country club itself put $13,500 towards this event in expenses. The hotel motel money was alongside that to put the concert together. It was benefiting Meals on Wheels last year. We were glad to donate $8,650 to Meals on Wheels because of this event. This was broken down in ticket sales and beverage sales, which were almost $12,000, and a little extra was put back into a kitty for the country club to continue this event going forward. And we just feel that this is a good deal to get going in Muleshoe, that it'll grow, that it'll become bigger and bigger, and would like to have continued support in it. And I'm open to any question.
So the city made $30,000 available last year for this, and the country club pitched in $13,500.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I will say, this event probably put more people in hotel rooms than any other event that council has assisted with through hotel motel tax funds. And it wasn't just the dollars that were spent in the hotels. We know that, people filled up with gas before they left. They ate in the restaurants here, some of those kind of things. And council can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the feeling last year that this was something that was worthwhile for us to contribute to kick off And then hopefully, as time goes on, then the country club will be able to sustain this event on their own. The funds that were raised last year, those were put in a separate account and are being accounted for completely separate by the country club. So that we have a good number then to go back towards the event then year after year. And the plan is that it will continue to build, something much like Littlefield has every year. I think the third weekend of July every year, City of Littlefield hosts a top name performer to come in, and this is something much the same way. Bordertown Days in Texaco, Farwell, they bring in someone out at Alpo's, and something similar to that, but it's in conjunction with Mule Day celebration.
I think something to consider on this event is of that expense, last year it was roughly $20,000 just to get in a band that would draw the people to the event. So that's a huge part of the expense.
And a lot of the folks that came, they were from all over the place. They weren't just local people. And having the name brand, band, brought in some folks. In fact, I heard some comments, they just couldn't believe that Muleshoe was able to attract the bands that came. So, and I think you have to face it, you know, it costs some dollars to get those people to come here. So.
I want to say after the last board meeting, the country club talking about this, for one thing, publicly, kudos to the way y'all pulled it off. I mean, for a first time event, I think it was a great turnout. It was a great event. Everybody had a great time. I heard nothing. There was no trouble with parking, no trouble with security and people not acting like they're supposed to. For the first time, it really, really went well. And they also admittedly made some errors, some mistakes that they see where they could have done better. They're already talking about more sponsor money and kind of getting ahead of the curve instead of rushing at the last minute. I think they're doing a really good job of trying to make this a self-sustaining to where it's just going to go from now on. I mean, they've got a good group of people that's worked really, really hard and want to continue doing that. And they want to involve more people in the community, to invite more people in the community to get involved and help put this thing on and make it grow. And it sounds like they've done a lot of research and they've learned from past mistakes, and that will continue.
It's amazing what you learn the first year.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
I still think
they're
though,
very-
it was very well organized.
Absolutely.
The first, and
It was
it was really enjoyable. And I enjoyed the food trucks being there, and I thought that was,
very entertaining, and they
came along with it very well.
It drew people of all ages. You know, there were some children there.
Yeah.
Even, you know.
some little ones up there dancing their
Yeah, they
boots
were.
off.
They were.
They were getting after it. They had a good.
It was a
large
great
time.
night. It was a good time, and it was a great night to be in Muleshoe.
And I honestly believe it's something that can really grow more community-wide than even what it started out as. Y'all did a good job. I mean,
That's one of the reasons we picked the name we did, not only because we used to have meal days, but hopefully that it grows to more than just the evening event.
yeah,
That we have something all day, every day, essentially get to that point.
I think it'd be a great thing, and like I say, there's a lot of people put a lot of hard work into it, and are willing to come back and do it again, so it's a good deal.
We have kind of the understanding that we could probably get full funding again this year. Next year, probably slowly take it back in increments until it's self-sustaining, can stand on its own. It's kind of what our committee's hoping for.
I'll make a motion that we approve that request.
I'll second.
And we have a second. Is there any other discussion or any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate everybody's hard work. You let us know if we can help next year. Next thing we'd like to do is consider approving the Muleshoe Country Club monthly dues. It is our agreement with them that the council will approve any rate increases on their dues and stuff.
That's correct.
And
So at their annual board meeting, the board voted to increase monthly dues from $90 to $125 for full membership and $60 to $75 for social memberships. So that was approved by their board, and if council approves that, then that will actually go out on their January 1st statements.
I think that's a good faith deal for the country club to start trying to figure out how to make it their club self-sustaining too. So,
It's been 6 years since their last increase.
6 years. Okay.
I'll make a motion we approve that.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve those increases in the monthly dues for the Muleshoe Country Club. Any other questions or discussion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Next thing we'd like to do is receive the financial statement for the month ending November 30th of 2017. I trust you've all reviewed that item by item, and I'll make a motion we approve that financial statement.
Second time.
Do we have a second? Anybody have any questions about the statement? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. That brings us to the administrative reports.
Thank you, Mayor. I had stated in my report to y'all that we'd be opening bids for ground storage tanks on December 21st. That date has actually changed. Some of the contractors felt like they needed more time to be able to submit a competitive bid. So we've set that date for January the 11th. Ramona and I had previously talked about that Tuesday, but the engineers felt like if we gave them a couple more days, so we're going to give them till the 11th. We'll actually open bids that day, and then council will consider awarding a bid for that construction at the January council meeting, then on the 15th. Contractors will begin work soon on the new lift station. Equipment's being moved in, so they're ready to get to work on that. Work on the new hangar at the airport continues. The framing is up, the door's in. They're just ready to put the metal on that building. Proposals were received on the renovation of the airport apartment, making it into a pilot's lounge. Our contractor is currently working on some other projects for the city, so as soon as he's finished with those, then he'll be ready to get started out there. I'll make a note, go ahead and tell you, I became aware this afternoon, the vehicle that had been seized that we had identified as a courtesy car out at the airport, that was actually released to us today. So here pretty quick, we'll be able to go ahead and have that courtesy car available at the airport. The building improvements at the library have begun. If you've been by there, you notice that the outside of the building's been painted. It looks really nice. It's been a long time since any work was done there. Public Works Department also cleaned up the grounds around the library. It looks like a new facility over there whenever you drive by. So if you haven't, we'll take a minute and drive by that direction and look at that. To remind council that our Christmas luncheon will be held on Wednesday this week, on the 13th, at the training facility. We'll begin at noon, and we'd encourage all to be there. It's a great time to spend with our employees, and thank them for the work that they do all year. The Chamber of Commerce Christmas Parade is going to be on the evening of Saturday, December 16th. That's this coming Saturday. It begins at 6 p.m. So we'd encourage all the public and council to be there for that. And then the Chamber of Commerce Shop the Shoe concludes also on December 16th. So if you're not completely finished with all your shopping, we'd encourage you to shop the shoe and keep your dollars local. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Any council have any remarks?
Don't know anything.
Okay. Slater would like to take a second to pass on our condolences to you and your family.
Thank you.
You've been in our prayers, and we hope things will come.
I really appreciate that.
Just want everybody to shop the shoe and enjoy the fall, and not to forget what the season's all about, the reason for the season. And look forward to seeing everybody Wednesday at the Christmas party. Nobody has anything else, then we are adjourned.
Good job.